Super progressive. What is good, everybody? Today we have a super sick guest. He just opened up a huge event for Hernan Cattaneo in New York City. He's had some of the most successful productions released in 2024, some of my personal favorite productions. Uh, he represents a city that is so close to my heart and so close to the history of this music. Um, Straight out of New York, we have Mike Isai with us today. Mike, how you doing, man?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Thanks for having me.
So I want to get right into this past weekend when you opened the room for Hernan at Avant Gardner. Huge gig, huge responsibility. Talking off air, you kind of described it as one of those stereo Montreal opening sets where you said you were on for 3.5 hours,
Yeah,
starting
dude.
when the room is literally empty, ending when you're handing off to Hernan in front of thousands of people. Can you take us through what that opening set was like for you and your preparations for the night?
Yeah, of course, man. So just starting with, from beginning to end, the preparation for it was like, well, I was kind of nervous because it's 3.5 hours and it was already close to a sold out show. By the beginning of the day, it was sold out. So you had about, I think like 800, 900 heads in that club. And preparing for it, it was not too bad, to be honest with you. Like the way I prepare everything in record box, I have it set up like opening dub tracks. I have like a playlist for that. I have a playlist for, groovy, um hard groovy, like it's labels that I would understand and their playlists that work at certain moments. So I already have it set up like that, from the get-go. For this gig specifically, I made like a subsection of that, just for the gig itself of like tunes I'd love to play. I didn't necessarily do any tracks that are like, I'm definitely gonna play this after this, because it's not going to work out if you have it already full prepared, because you don't know what's going to happen at all that night. You might have a packed room already 30 minutes in. For my gig, from the beginning, I think it was, yeah, so I started at 10, and at 9:57 they already started letting people in, and already it was like maybe 8 people or 9 people that already, that came right in. A lot of them were friends, but I started off a little dubby. I love starting off with dub type of tracks because you can loop like multiple instances of them, and you can sort of play around with them and kind of loop the track over until you start seeing like a little bit more people coming in. For my case, it was like I was looping it for maybe like 2 minutes and playing around with the hi-hats and shit like that. It was a lot of fun. But let me see, just starting from beginning to end. Yeah, this is gonna be like a big story, brother.
Yeah.
Yeah, already by like 11, it was already decently packed. And the nervousness of me, it kind of wore off. Like that wore off like 15 minutes in. And from there, I just started getting like a little bit more groovy. I saw the response. I picked it up a little bit. By the time around 12, it was already pretty packed. Not to the gills. That was more like around 1 o'clock because he had the boat party before. So a lot of the fans, they were on that boat. It was already sold out show then. And by like, yeah, by 1 o'clock, it was already just a sea of people.
Um,
And
I have a question
yeah,
for you.
yeah, of course, bro.
The warm-up set, I think, people who have a lot of respect for the warm-up set are very hesitant to push the envelope a little bit, to introduce some energy because you don't want to um step on the headlining DJ's toes in any way. But you're playing for 3.5 hours. You have to have some curvature to your set, and you're gonna have to retain the interest and build the excitement. So there's gonna be moments where you're gonna have to push it a little bit. How'd you kind of find that balance in the set? Is that something you were like, is that where kind of, I don't know, that's where I could see myself getting nervous about pushing
Yeah.
it a little bit, but you have to. And then what were some of those tracks for you that you remember that had the club, that introduced energy to the dance floor, but in a respectful way?
Yeah, so you also have to be mindful of the people on the dance floor. I mean, yes, an opening set it needs to, sort of get people in the groove or everything, but there's a time and place. You're not going to do that for 3.5 hours. Like I myself experienced like that. Like it was a rookie mistake, and I was opening up for Elkie Klein, and the DJ that was playing after me wasn't able to make it through. So I had a really long set for Elkie. Uh, and in that set, I was sort of like keeping the mood like still kind of stable, but it was already 12 o'clock and it was packed. And like my friend came over and he was like, hey, you think you're gonna pick it up a little bit? Like, a lot of fun. There's a lot of people here. And I was like, you know what? Yeah, you're right. And like that's when I kind of picked up the energy. And like I remembered that set, for this set. And as soon as I saw like more people coming in, I just started playing like a little bit groovy. Like you don't have to like not play anything that people will enjoy. You have to bring it up. It's like a crescendo. When Hernan gets on or the next DJ goes on, play it like a little lightly so that they can easily mix in and take the direction from there. So when I started to pick up the tunes that I was playing, um, they had a little bit of a more of a groovy bass, but it wasn't. I called them like the tracks were kind of dry, so there was no snare buildups or like FX risers or crazy clashing. It was just straight drum grooves and bass lines, and that's what got people moving. Like it wasn't a lot of dramatic stuff. It was just stuff with nice kick, good percussion, nice bass line, and that's all the people kind of want. And it was and then towards like the peak of the night, that's when I can play like a little bit more dramatic tracks with like FX risers and like snares and kind of a little bit of a breakdown. That's like another thing. I'm like riffing here, but if you're doing like an opening set, like what I personally believe is don't leave a lot of room where there's like going to be a giant breakdown because you want their feet to keep moving. That's your job for the night. If you're having like, a minute breakdown, 30-second breakdowns, you're kind of taking away that energy. So, throughout I would say for a good 3 hours, literally no breakdowns going on at all. And if a song had a breakdown, I always had a loop going with percussions just to keep the people moving. Because if you have a breakdown, what are you going to do? Just stay there and kind of bop your head? You don't know what to do. Like so, you have a little percussion in the background, so they're just like grooving, and you can continue on. Towards like the like last half hour, I think I did like one breakdown, and the crowd was nuts. Like they were actually cheering. It was I kind of got like a little like not embarrassed, but I was like, oh my God, this is fucking cool.
Yeah, it's great. And I mean, you told me after the gig, like, well received by Hernan too. Like, he said a job well
Yeah.
done.
Yeah, it was really cool. He liked the direction that I was going, and uh, for the transition in, he just easily transitioned to the next song. We didn't have to like do an FX out or anything. All he kind of did is just when a breakdown came, he kind of just lowered the volume and he was like, Mike Isai, everyone, you just hold up my hand. And he was telling me like, don't be so shy, man, because like, dude, like you have like 900 heads just looking directly at you. I was just like, oh my God, like I didn't know what to do. Like I was just smiling. I was just like really really happy about everything, and even towards the end of his set, he called me over, and it was kind of like a standing ovation. Like everyone cheering. He's like, yeah, like also give it up for Mike. So it was cool.
Yeah, man. And it seems like this relationship with Hernan, with Sudbeat, has been something that's been gaining a lot of traction. Um, I remember 6 months ago, probably the last time we met up was at Miami Music Week when you were playing the Sudbeat showcase. Got to see you play a set at the showcase at Factory Town. That was awesome. You had your release, uh, Tunnel and Exit, the EP on Sudbeat, which by all means has been one of the releases of 2024. One of my personal favorites. And even in my interview with Hernan, he kind of called to you about how Sudbeat is so much more than an Argentinian label. It's a label for underground progressive sounds around the world. And he pointed to you in New York holding it down with what he described as the deep shit. That's what
Yeah,
he used to do.
the
Yeah,
dark shit, the dark shit.
yeah, the dark shit. Sorry. But bring us into let's start with the, at least for me, the release, Tunnel and Exit was such a huge, not only a huge release, but for me as a not only a fan of yours but a friend of yours, it seemed like your profile and your reach really, that was like a, I don't know, a big moment for you, that
Yeah, it
release, to
was.
go from to be a featured artist on Sudbeat, to have one of the biggest tracks of the year. Everybody's playing it during Miami Music Week. Um, let's talk about the release. Two tracks on Sudbeat, Tunnel and Exit, clear play or paying clear homage to the history of underground music in New York City with two famous clubs, Exit and Tunnel. Um, why did what about these tracks that you were producing got you looking back into the history of New York, and what were you kind of trying to channel in these productions to name them Tunnel and Exit?
Dude, so I kind of have to go like, way back for this because I have siblings that went out to those clubs um, every weekend. And I was introduced to this music at like a really young age. I think like, like 6 or 7, like even 5 years old. I don't remember, but I was really young. And every weekend they would get ready. They would be playing these compilation CDs. They were listening to the radio. Uh, in New York, we had a station called KTU, and they would sometimes broadcast from inside the club. So even when like my siblings were getting ready to go out and I was hanging out with them, they'd be playing this music, and then they would all leave. Radio still playing, KTU still playing, and like it's a Saturday night dance factory. And either like David Morales or like Jonathan Peters is on the radio, and I was listening to that, and I was like, God damn, this music is so cool. Like I wanted to go to the club with them because everyone looked like they were just excited to go out and like have a good time. So like I got introduced to this music really, really young. And the music that I make now, it's definitely like an homage to what I grew up with, and what my siblings were listening to, and kind of like the sound of New York at that time. And yeah, when I thought about like making these tracks, like I like to listen to the producers and DJs who were playing like around that time. Like I was big into like DT and Victor Calderone, Seed and Palash,
Yeah.
sorry, and John Kramer and Stefan K. All that stuff was playing at my house, like already from my siblings. So I kind of like channel and like listen to their stuff before I actually make this music. I still do. Like I still like to get inspiration from, that era, and I kind of like romanticize it in my music. Like, the heavy drums, the dark vocals, kind of like making commands on the dance floor, and people are like so wired into it. The deep bass lines that, they felt, it's like they must have had a sick ass time there. But yeah, I kind of like to channel that and bring that energy and then, put it into my music. So when it came to, Tunnel and Exit, those were the two clubs my siblings were going to most. Of course, they were going to like, what was it? I don't know why the name just like popped out in my head. I'll remember later, but yeah, like they were just going out to all those clubs like Limelight, Sound Factory, and whatnot. So when I made Tunnel and Exit, I was like, those are the most two clubs that my siblings would go out to. I had to name it that, especially Tunnel. Like that track, it's like going back from like the recordings and like pictures and videos that I was able to see on YouTube. I wanted to get that dark underground sound. Like I look at those pictures and like I want to put that into, into like my music. Even it goes down to like the reverbs that I use. So like a little secret, I like to use convolution reverbs. So what they do is they kind of capture the room and the sound. So you're able to, go into any room and kind of capture that sound by, playing like a blip or playing like a short sound, and it'll kind of capture the room. So for Tunnel, the reverb that I use is an actual tunnel, like like a literal tunnel. And for Exit, the convolution reverb that I used, I believe it was a warehouse reverb. So with that pluck sound, like I made it sound like it was in like a giant like warehouse.
That's
So
sick, man.
it's literally in the music too.
Yeah, it's super, super cool. Were you able, before these tracks went off to get mastered, did you run them by your siblings and were you like, hey, does this bring you back in any way?
So with my siblings, I showed them and they were just they were really happy for me. They like the way that sounds. They were like, "Oh, this reminds me of Danny," or "This reminds me of like JP at like 4 a.m." They were really excited for me. My sister gets all giddy when when I tell her like, "Hey, I just did a show with Hernan," or like, "Yeah, I played at this club," or like, "Hey, I played like your favorite track." Like I played Voices in Sri Lanka, and she was like, "Holy shit, you fucking play Voices." I was like, "Hell yeah." It's like an anthem here in New York. Like, Voices in my head. And it was really cool because it was like their first time of being exposed to like that type of music too. So it was like all connected on it. Just I get goosebumps thinking about
Yeah, it's so cool, bro. And like if you're comfortable sharing I mean, you're New York to your core, bro. Not only with the
it.
music you play, not only where you live, like, you're calling from New York, but dude, I think a lot of our listeners would find it very interesting and overall just really awesome what you do for your day job.
Oh yeah. So I'm a firefighter in the New York City Fire Department, and yeah, it's a crazy job to balance. It's a good balance that I found now. Like uh, back in 2019, I got injured, so I was pretty much out for a while until I got recovered. And in that time, I was just doing a lot of production. And right now, I'm still in recovery, so I'm not out in the field. I'm just pretty much staying at home base for the fire department. So the schedule that I have now works. It's not a crazy schedule. It's just Mondays through Fridays, 9 to 5. So I'm actually able to balance the music now with my current job. And I just kind of told my unit that I do this, I DJ and make music because I was taking a lot of annual leave pretty much like, like every couple of months. And I told my chief, and he was really cool about it. My colleagues were really cool about it, and it kind of felt good to now talk about my passion and not try and hide it.
Yeah,
So
definitely. Nah,
yeah,
definitely, man. I'm so happy for you that you're able to find some balance because one, you never want to hide your passion from, from your friends basically at work, but two, things are just right now going up and up and up for you. You don't want to feel like two things are fighting against each other. Like
no,
you want it to all work together, bro. And it's like you're just trying to do the best at both things. But you're getting flown out to Sri Lanka, you're going up to Canada, you're in freaking off on Gardner on the weekend. Like hopefully everybody it sounds like everyone's working together and it sounds like your head's in the right place to just make it work for everyone and just do your best across the
yeah,
board.
yeah, dude. Like it kind of felt like a little bit of relief when I also like told my captain as well. It was just like, dude, that's sick. He's like, I'm mad happy and mad proud of you. You're doing it. He was like, chase the passion, man. Like, and try and get the
Yeah,
hell
it's
out of here too.
that's so awesome, man. Let's talk about New York because
Hell yeah.
I'm living in Manchester now. Kind of the scene that I'm covering over here in Europe brings me to Amsterdam, brings me to Lisbon, brings me to Barcelona, brings me down to London. Um, but you, Mike Martinez, and your crew is known in the progressive underground around the world as the New York Progressive Crew. And it it is so cool because we've become friends, but to know that something the progressive scene in other cities, I think, is so huge. Look at Argentina.
Oh, forget it.
You look at I don't know off the top of my head. You look at other cities where it's like really kind
Sri
of whatever
Lanka,
Sri
it's
Lanka,
gigantic.
exactly. Um,
Gigantic, dude.
and in New York, a city so rich with history of underground music, especially with the progressive sound. Um, you know, Going beyond Sasha and John Digweed at Twilo, progressive in the 90s was found such a home base in America in New York City. Um, but today, to me at least, it feels like it's one of the more underground sounds within underground club music in New York. And unless it's John coming through, Hernan coming through, DT coming out, even though he's not really defined by genre, you really do have to seek out these parties that you and Mike and your crew, and I want to learn about everyone who's involved, but it's really an underground thing. Like you have to go and search
Yeah.
out these parties and you know, to some people maybe like, oh, why isn't progressive bigger in New York? And I'm like, no, it's actually really freaking cool. Like it feels underground. So can you kind of share with all the listeners what, you know, who is your crew and what type of events are you guys doing? And how can someone either visiting in New York or from the tri-state area like go out and experience what you guys are doing?
Yeah, of course. So, like the little crew I'm with, like, yeah, it's Mike Martinez and also my friend Chris Morgan, who's kind of like the brainchild right now of these events. So he is big on sound. and that's the most important thing with these events. So his series, Brute, he just started that just a couple of months ago, and the parties have been building up, and you kind of have like dedicated people who come out now just to seek this music, and it's a very humble amount of people, but it's a good enough dance floor where you have space to move around. It's not too packed right now, but it isn't empty either. There is a good amount of people coming out. I think the last event they had like 90 or 100 heads out there. So for like, an intimate party, that's a good amount of people. So yeah, we got my
What
friend.
venues are you guys doing them at?
So he does it at this venue. It's where's it at? I would have to pull out my phone. It's recording. But I mean you can find him just by looking up the event page that he has, BRUT Brute.
Nice.
But he does it out in Bushwick, and Bushwick is already a really poppin' scene. Like New York is extremely competitive when it comes to music, let alone the artists. There's something going on every single weekend, and there's events going on during the week. So, you know, people who come out here, they have the choice of, whatever parties they want to go to, whether it comes to like techno, house, drum and bass, and like everything in between. There's always going to be something going on. So, it's kind of a challenge starting something up here and bringing the people out. So with the last event I did with them, it was myself, it was Mike Martinez, it was Chris Morgan, it was Mir Omar, who's
Oh yeah.
also been here just as long as me within the progressive scene. And we also had my other friend, Rotary Play. So we already have like a good amount of people. All of us have different little friend groups. So for that first event, it was a success. For the second event, I wasn't able to be there because I was doing a gig out in Toronto. But I heard that they had like I said, about like 100 heads up there. So yeah, it's starting to pick up a little bit, and people are noticing because we really care about the music. We care about the atmosphere too. We want everyone just to have a good time, feel safe, and just go to a dance, no nonsense. And they like that we're, trying to push that, especially good sound, dude. Like,
Yeah.
I hate going to a party and then this, atmosphere is cool, but, the sound is duty. Like, I want to go somewhere and it's like nice, decent sound. Like, you can feel it in your chest.
Oh, totally. And I think that's one of the coolest things about this like progressive subculture within underground music is the fact that it's not really about the amount of people at the party. It's more about the sound quality, as you explained. It's about, as it's always been, about like the music, the quality of the music being played and, boundaries being pushed. And like that's what I think is being recognized around the world and why you guys are on the radar of so many different movers and shakers and DJs and cities across Europe. And it's really awesome to see because your passion obviously shines through, but it's all there to experience. And it's cool to know that like you go to New York, there's something for you there on the progressive music front. So yeah, I'm stoked with what you guys are doing. I know, I talk to David every single day. He's so excited. Like he reports back to me and I'm like dying over here, bro. I'm like, oh
Yeah,
my God, it sounds so sick.
he also got involved too. So with the second party, he was very much involved as well. I wasn't checking up on the group chat that much during that time, but yeah, David's involved in it too. He's like, fuck yeah. Especially since it's like you're not only getting like progressive music, you're getting sort of like everything that, is kind of progressive to the core. Like there's music that's, um, you can say like someone would think it's a little bit techno. There's some music where it's a little bit more
Yeah.
housey, and the listeners out in Bushwick, they kind of appreciate that it can be this sort of eclectic sound because the whole night, I mean, when I played, and from what I hear from when they played, it's a crescendo. Like, any good night, like,
Totally.
there's a peak, you rise up, there's kind of like a build down. It's a lot of peaks and valleys. It's not just going to be a straight plateau where it's just going to be static.
Yeah.
There's DJs there who kind of want to push that envelope, and you kind of have to do that when you're in New York because you have to be, like I said, there's a lot of DJs out here. There's a lot of music. Anyone can have their picking and choosing, but they're coming out to these brute events because they know the DJs are all in sync and everything's gonna kind of flow. Nothing's competing against each other when we're all playing. Like the next DJ can pick it up and bring it up like even higher to like another level. It's not going to be like there's certain nights where you're at a New York club. I'm not going to name any names, but it's like it starts off like incredibly hard, then it goes incredibly soft and incredibly hard. It's just like
Oh yeah.
kind of you're fucking up the flow, man. Like imagine going in for drinks at like 10 p.m. and there's like 150 BPM kill your parents techno playing. You know what I mean? Like it's there's a flow with these type of parties, and that's kind of like what I'm doing and what this crew is doing.
No, it's awesome. I'll never forget when I talk about like having to push the envelope in New York. I think it's summarized best for me when I made a post on my Instagram page about like, you know, I played out some progressive, kind of like progressive trance tracks that were progressive in their nature from the 90s. They're pushing 136 BPM. They're up there. And I was like, is there space for this music today? Mike Martinez comes in with a list of 8 DJs I've never heard that are playing the exact sound that I'm describing. And I'm like, dude, you're on it. Like you're on the
Yeah,
frontier of this sound, finding what's sounding different, what what's coming next. And of course, it's cool that's coming from your crew.
yeah. I mean, when it comes to this music, like when it comes to like progressive as like a genre, what I'll say is like a lot of DJs they'll just go on Beatport and just look for progressive. There's so much more that captures the progressive sound that's on other different labels, like other different, they're labeled as something else. They might be labeled as like down tempo techno. They
Oh,
might be
totally.
labeled
Yeah.
at yeah, they might be labeled as techno or just straight up house, but it still has that kind of progressive feel to it. And it'll work in a set. And you have to kind of find these out to be to be on top of everything because like if you're playing the same sounds like throughout a whole set, it's just going to be a straight plateau. There's no peaks or valleys. uh you gotta, where am I going with this? What I'm saying is like it's good to like explore other genres and kind of, and they'll kind of like fit that sort of sound, and it'll work within a progressive set, and it'll just connect all together
Yeah.
pretty much.
No, totally, man. Um, I want to get inside your head on the production front. You're one of the most talented producers coming out with music right now. I had a little chat with Mike Rieko about this on the last episode, but like, when you have an idea in your head, what's the workflow for you? Um, Based on, so you have an idea for a track in your head. not step by step, but what is kind of what is your first step? Like, what are you laying down first? Are you looking at laying down percussion first, or do you start with a melody? I'm just interested in kind of your approach from turning a production idea into actually putting it down.
Yeah, of course. So what I like to usually start with is a kick and a bass, or start with the percussions. Like I love percussions.
Yeah,
Yeah,
clearly,
yeah,
yeah.
I love percussion. So I kind of more or less I start with the groove of the track. I think that's the most important thing. Well, for me, is the most important thing of the whole entire song. If you have that groove, because that's what people are going to be dancing to. Not so much like, I think melodies are extra for like kind of like what I'm doing, but it's sort of like all about that groove. So I'm starting off with that. I'm either starting off with a kick and a bass line, and like I usually have like with my bass line, I'll have like the kicks, I'll have them all in key, so I can easily, just pick out a kick and that's it. I make sure that the workflow is like on point, because I don't want to be searching for sounds all day, like searching, flipping through kicks. So they're all keyed, so it'll work perfectly with the bass line that I have. And then from there, I'll go for the percussion. So let me just take a sip of water over there.
Yeah, yeah, you're good.
Yeah, and then from there, like I'll start from percussions. Like I have a bunch of like one shots. Some of them are labeled in key just to make like some things easier. Others are just like kind of Foley sounds, and I'll sort of put them all together to kind of like have like a nice groove. Like if I'm going like this, it's like okay, I know I'm doing something right. And then from there, as long as I have that loop of that groove, then I can build it into like whatever. Like
Right.
I can either take it deep, I can make it tribal, I can make it melodic. But yeah, just as long as I have that groove, then I can start going places with the track. Some people might say it might be difficult to, just have the groove and then kind of find what the song will be after. But the groove is the most important thing to me. So I gotta lay that down first. If there's no groove, no one's gonna be shaking their tail feathers on the dance floor. So you gotta have that. So yeah, that's usually what it is for like my productions. And then from there, like I kind of have fun.
Yeah.
Like I'll see like if an atmospheric texture will work. I'll see if like I don't know a vocal will sound like insane in one parts. I'll either like record the vocals, or sometimes like I'll use AI just to see like, okay, how does this vocal sound? I use AI because I mean now like the possibilities are kind of endless, especially like if you're in a small studio. You can kind of test out what works, what doesn't, and yeah, going from there, it's just trying to have fun in the studio because I want to have fun making music. I don't want it to feel like it's a chore. Sometimes I, feel like, all right, like this is a chore, then I'll kind of step away from it. I don't know, go out or have fun. But I like to keep things fun in my studio and have a nice time. Even like the layout of like my actual studio, like, and there's a lot of bright lights. It can look like a club. I can make it, all red and dark. I got like these light up keyboards, and they kind of make it feel like I'm in a spaceship. So like even down to
Yeah.
that, yeah, bro. Like I want to like be able to feel like I'm in like an actual spaceship, or like another dimension, or like in a dark club. So that's how I kind of lay this atmosphere down, and I'm having a good time in the studio. I'm having a blast, man.
Yeah. Um, you obviously experienced success with your productions this year. Um, but is it hard to not, you find something that works both let's say both on the dance floor, but also in the charts. Is it hard to kind of say, okay, I'm not going to go and just make four or five more of those. I'm going to keep pushing forward, even though it's a little bit into the unknown.
Yeah, I mean, like sometimes I do experience that. Like, let's say if like the production is not kind of going well, sometimes I'll take the like, the project template that I made of tunnel or exit and try and like switch it around. But I find that it doesn't really work if you kind of do that. You're kind of like just making another copy.
Yeah,
It's a bit more pleasant and much more fun if you just kind of start from scratch. I mean, you don't even have to really start from scratch for some things. Like you can take like the hi-hats that you used in like one production, add it onto a new one, and then add layer other hats on top of it to make it
right.
sound cool. Or like, I don't know, you take the loop that you had of the hi-hats of like, one of my tracks, like Tunnel, pitch it down. So, it's a whole different feel, and then add other hats on top of it if you want to get like a good idea. But making like the same tracks over and over again and using like the same samples or the same hi-hats, um, I mean, like the listeners can hear that. I can hear that. Uh, it just sort of makes it sound like you're making the same thing over and over again, and like that's not what I want to do. What I want to do is just, each track has like its own type of feel, its own type of drive, like its own type of rhythm, and I want each to be like unique, but also complement each other.
Yeah.
That kind of like makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. No, absolutely, man. And I guess kind of my last question for you is what's coming up for you, bro? Because like everyone's so stoked on your productions. You're like the gigs are getting bigger and bigger. Um, how are you planning to kind of, let's say, finish out 2024?
Yeah, so with 2024, I actually have two remixes coming out, which is crazy. Like 1 month after the other, I got a remix for Stripped. It's called Campsite Floater by B. Riley. And
Nice.
I heard this track. So originally, I just heard this track on Beatport, and it had such a tribal feel, but I kind of wanted to fit it into my set for Miami. So during that time, FL Studio just released an AI tool that separates the stems.
Hmm.
So I used that, and I was able to get the drums, layer those drums, use those vocals, put my own spin into it, and it did incredibly well when I played it in Miami. Like it had that tribal feel, but it still, um, made sense for the hour that I was playing. And I hit up the A&R, and I was just like, hey, like I made this track, and I want to see if there's a possibility of it being official. And he made it official.
Yeah, sick.
It was nuts. Yeah, so yeah, that release is coming out this month in September, and then the next release, it's for Mango Alley again, and they've been awesome. Like with my first like remix for them was promo with Kavi and Polo, both amazing Argentine producers, and like that remix kind of helped introduce me to new people. So like, of course, Mango asked me like, "Hey, you want to do a remix?" And I was like, "Sure, yeah, of course." So I think this remix is gonna uh, kind of how can I say it? People are really gonna enjoy this because it really does have that tribal underground feel. I think I sent it to you, the track Amnesia.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's like a very deep underground sound, and like I recorded a vocal, me saying amnesia, pitched it down. You have it in the climax. I think that track is gonna like really get some heads going. It's like I don't
It's
want to
gonna
say like a
do
signature.
some damage, bro. It's gonna be sick.
Yeah, yeah. Like I don't want to say like it's a signature sound because what I'm doing is just like I'm kind of like romanticizing the sound of like what other you know people here in New York used to do back in the 90s and early 2000s. But yeah, it's sort of that similar sound with my spin on it, and I think it's going to do incredibly well out in October. I sent it to Spencer Brown. He played it at Stereo. I actually had a friend who went there and he was recording and he's like, dude, you gotta fucking hear this track, man. And I'm like, yeah. I was like, hey, buddy. So you're not gonna believe this, but bro, that's my remix. And he's like, oh, get the fuck out of here. And I sent it to him. And he's like, holy shit. It was like it sounded like huge at stereo. Like it kind of sounded like you, but I was like, damn, this is like some fucking tribal ass crazy shit. I was like, yeah, man, it's me. So like I'm happy it did well in stereo. So I think other people are gonna enjoy it as well.
Oh, hell yeah, man. That's such an awesome story. Um, well, yeah, man, I just want to say thank you for taking the time for the interview. This was definitely a long time coming. I don't think it could have come at a better time. And just so stoked for you, bro. I see all the work you put in, see the place that your passion is coming from. And I'm just so stoked that you're experiencing this success. And I know that this is only a very small piece of what's to come for you. So just keep up the great work. Keep representing New York. And no, this was awesome. I really appreciate it, bro.
Bro, I appreciate it. You kidding me?
Yeah, this was great. I'll be back. I'll be back stateside at some point and I'll hit you up.
Yeah, bro,
We'll have to
we
chill
gotta go
again.
out.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. I'll come to one of these brewed events and it'll be sick. But yeah, bro, keep it up and we'll talk soon, man.
Hell yeah, brother. It's
All
good
right.
seeing you, man.
Yeah,
Seriously, it's been a
definitely.
while.
Yeah, it's been a sec. But thanks for everybody for listening. Peace out.
Peace.